All right, welcome everyone. As more people may trickle in, but we will go ahead and begin. Welcome to Let's Talk About Sex, sex education workshop for parents and caregivers, brought to you by the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County. For those of you who are not familiar with the DSNMC, we are a community organization of parents and families and individuals affected by Down syndrome. You can find more about us and who we are and what we do at dsnmc.org. I'd like to thank you all for being here tonight. We'd also like to thank the Tribute 21 Fund for a grant that has helped sponsor this workshop series. We are very glad to have Marcia Dorn here to teach us all a little more about sex and sex ed with our kids, especially in the context of disability and developmental disabilities. So we will have a Q&A at the end. You are also welcome to post questions in the chat as we go. And as we wrap up, we will also have an evaluation link in the chat. So if you can give us some feedback about what you learned tonight, what you'd like to know more about on this topic or another topic, and help us guide our workshop series, that would be great feedback for us. We will eventually post this recording of the workshop without the Q&A on our website. So it'll just be the presentation portion. And we will also have a resource list to share. So I'm glad everybody is able to join us tonight. Thank you for being here and staying in with us. And I will hand it over to Marcia Dorn. Thank you.
Hello. Oh, sorry.
Go ahead.
Hi, everyone. My name is Marcia. It's really nice to see you all. I appreciate you all being here, and I'm really, really excited for this presentation. So let's get started. Go to the next slide. So who am I? Well, my name is Marcia. I live in Washington, D.C., and I was born and raised in Rockville, Maryland. So I'm a local to the DMV. I am a first-generation American in my family. My father is from Moscow. My mom is from Kiev, Ukraine. I've been working with adolescents and adults with developmental and intellectual disabilities for over 12 years now. I'm very excited to say that I am finally in the final stretch of my supervision toward my sexuality educator certification. I'm currently finished with my coursework. I'm starting my supervision. So hopefully by next year, I will officially be an official sexuality educator. And I got married on October 10th, 2020. For anyone that's really into math, that's 10-10-20. So that was really cool for us. We can go to the next slide. So before we get started, I really like to do a game of true and false, and it's going to be a quick game. So feel free to unmute yourself and shout your response out. You can also put it in the chat. So let's get started. Next slide. True or false? Sex education is just talking about sex and or teaching sex.
False.
Correct. That is false. The sex part is a really small part of sex education. It's a very tiny slice of a comprehensive sex education. And just as a side note, I'll use the terms sex ed and sexuality education interchangeably, but they're technically different. When we're talking about sex ed, we're referring to actual education related to sex, contraception, STIs. When we're talking about sexuality education, that's when we're talking about, labeling your body parts, private, public, boundaries, in addition to sex, contraception, STI. So I just wanted to put that out there. Like I said, comprehensive sexuality is so much more than just sex, boundaries, friendships, relationships. A good quality sex education program will prevent the things that we want to prevent and promote the things that we want to promote. Next slide.
Oh.
That's okay. True or false? Teaching sex basically gives permission to become sexually active. False. Yes, that is very false. We have a lot of data, a lot of research that tells us that young people who access a comprehensive sex education curriculum are actually more likely to wait until becoming sexually active. And when they do decide to become sexually active, they're more likely to follow safer sex practices. So when we are teaching this information, we are not giving permission to have sex, but really we are informing young people about their bodies and their health, and we are empowering them by educating them. Next slide. True or false, people with intellectual and developmental disabilities don't need sex ed.
False.
That's false.
False. Yes, that's very false. And this one is probably the hardest for me to digest because education, regardless of the topic, is a human right for everyone. And we'll talk a little bit more about that later. Next slide. So thank you all for being here, and thank you all for completing the pre-meeting survey. It was really helpful for me to see who's here and read about you and your family and kind of learn your familiarity and comfort with this topic. We are a diverse group in the sense that we have some people with adult age children, some people with very young children. We have people that are really comfortable talking about this and others who are not quite there yet. So hopefully you will all learn something from this presentation. I will share my contact information at the end of this. So certainly if there's something I don't touch on, or if you kind of want to dive deeper into a topic, you are more than welcome to reach out to me. So what are we going to do here tonight? I'm going to do my best to quickly get through and leave time for questions. We're going to talk about a comprehensive sex ed program. What is it? What's part of it? We'll talk about some misconceptions surrounding sex ed, like we already have. We'll learn about human sexual development and developmental disabilities. We'll talk about specific topics in a sex ed curriculum, and then I'll be sharing resources throughout this presentation with you as well, in addition to a resource list that you'll receive at the end of this. Next slide. So why is this important? And the list is really endless, but I put down 5 reasons that I consider to be important. The fact that you're here present in this workshop means that you recognize the importance of this topic, and whatever the reason that brought you here tonight, you're here, and I'm happy for that, and that's what matters. So kudos to you. So reason number 1, it's an opportunity for you to build trust, share your values and beliefs surrounding sex and sexuality, to show that you are open, and that when your child comes to you with a question or a concern or something, they're not going to feel shame. We don't have a lot of time to delve into messaging surrounding sexuality, but there's so much negative messaging in our society related to sex and sexuality, and especially related to people with IDD, that being open and sex positive is a really powerful way to combat all of those negative messages our young people hear on TV, in movies, in school. You want to be the primary source of information, because if your child is not coming to you, then they're going to go to the internet, which can be a very wonderful place. It can also be a pretty scary place. And if they're not going to the internet, then there's TV, there's movies, there's other kids in school. You want to be the provider of this information. And, this may sound a little bit morbid, but I think it is important to note that, you want to be having these conversations with your children while you have the opportunity to do it. At a certain point, you're not going to be there to provide your children information, to show them where to go when they need something, and to build a community around them that supports them. So do it now while you still can. Number 2, it's a right. People with IDD are people like everyone else, and they need to learn all that they can to be productive and independent. Remember, sex ed is more than just sex. People have a right to know and understand their bodies. They have a right to learn about healthy habits, and they have a right to truly understand the difference between consent and compliance. Number 3, sex ed is not required in schools. In fact, only 23 states mandate sex ed, and of those 23 states, 13 require medically accurate information. So out of 23 states, only 13 require the sex education curriculum to be medically accurate. And sadly, in many of those places, our young people with disabilities are often excluded from that information, or they receive a very watered down version of sex education. So, a recommendation by this guy, Peter Gerhard, for those who have not heard his name before, he's definitely someone you'll want to remember. Peter Gerhard, Gerhadt. He's a really big expert in this field. But his recommendation is that 60% of sex education happens at home, and then 30% can happen in the context of school, day programs, therapy. But really, we want the bulk of this information to be coming from home and the families. Thank you, Brooke, for putting that in there. Yes, Peter Gerhard. Number 4, it reduces risk. And unfortunately, this is not something that we can ignore when we're talking about this population. Sex education isn't just about teaching all of the awesome positives of development. It's also teaching self-protection. It's teaching young people that refusing to be touched is a right, and that they can say no to things whether it's being touched or I don't want to eat this, whatever it is, they can say no. We can't report abuse if we don't know it's happening. David Hingsberger is another name I'll throw out often. You don't need to write it down because you'll see it later. But he has a quote that's one of my favorite quotes. If you can't say no to, I'm going to get to that one later. But what I wanted to say is that Peter Gerhardt has a framework called the Ring of Safety. And the Ring of Safety basically it has different supports to help people with disabilities protect themselves. And the number one support is comprehensive sex education. So we need to be teaching comprehensive sex education because it actually protects our young adults. And normalize the topic. Simply put, the more we talk about it, the less uncomfortable we will feel. Like we said, we already know that the idea of if we talk about it, they will do it is not true. And so we need to stop treating this topic as though it's optional for people with disabilities. When we educate young people about their bodies and health, we are empowering them and protecting them from harm. Next slide, please. So the first resource I want to share with you all is Sex Positive Talks to Have with Kids. This is a really excellent book. I highly encourage all of you to get it. If you don't already have it, I own it. It's on Amazon. It's easy to read. It offers really practical tools like conversation starters, depending on the age of your child, the specific topic. It's also really interactive in that they have sections for you to kind of self-reflect on how you're going to have a conversation, or the conversation you did have with your child, or maybe your experience with messaging related to sexuality. So I really can't recommend it enough. It's a really awesome place to start if you're not sure kind of where to begin, how to be sex positive, or even if you've kind of had lots of conversations, been doing this with your adult child for a long time, it's still a really excellent book. Lots of great advice in there. Next page. Next slide. So human development. Typically, when we think about sexual development, we think about puberty. We think, 13 to 17. But the reality is that sexual development is a process that occurs throughout the lifespan. So we're going to do a very quick overview of that. Sexual development starts in utero with the development of our biological sex. And when I say biological sex, I actually mean the parts that we are born with. So a penis, vagina, labia, testicles. When a baby is born, and now often before when a baby is born, what is the first thing we do? We look at it, look between its legs, and we say, it's a boy, it's a girl. We assign the gender. I'm not going to spend a lot of time talking about gender identity and gender expression, but I do want to make an important point that we know now that people with intellectual and developmental disabilities identify as gay, lesbian, trans, non-binary. It's not something that's unique to neurotypical people. This is also something that young people with intellectual and developmental disabilities experience as well. And so that's just something that we need to be mindful of when we're talking with our children, working with young adults, that they may not be straight, they may not be gay, they may be completely asexual for all we know. But we need to treat their sexual identity, their sexual orientation, their sexual expression the same way we would treat someone who didn't have a disability. So interest in seeing others naked, being naked, that's very normal for small children to be interested in seeing other people naked. I put asterisks next to curiosity with genitals and exploring their genitals, because at around 3-4 years old, it's very healthy and normal to see young children discover that they have genitals and want to explore and figure out what it is and what do they do and wow, that feels good, and when I'm bored I'm going to do that because it feels good. We view it as erotic because we're adults and we are viewing it through adult eyes, but the reality is this is a curiosity base and it's part of normal development for children. Adolescence, we all probably remember our adolescence. For some of us it may have been great, and for others it may have been more of a struggle, but this is really a time when we are going through all of these physical, social, emotional changes. In girls, puberty usually begins at age 8, with the biological processes being completed by 16. And in boys, puberty typically begins at around 9, and the biological process is largely completed by 18. Beyond hormone changes, we see a lot of exploring relationship dynamics, both friends and relationships. We begin exploring our own sexuality, our own desires, solo sex, which is a more sex positive term for masturbation. So I'll use those interchangeably, but just as a FYI. We also experience our first heartbreak in adolescence. And then as we move into adulthood, we start to experience the most independence, all of those issues from adolescence don't stay in adolescence. They often will carry into adulthood. We have a lot of issues and concerns that come up surrounding marriage, pregnancy. Some people don't get married, some people don't have children. That's okay as well. And then we also, of course, start experiencing changes in our sexual functioning that impact our life and our relationship. So good, we're on the next page. When we talk about sexual health, what do we mean? Sexual health is this very like nebulous kind of term, and there's a lot of different definitions. These phrases that you see on the screen are actually a list that was developed by a group of self-advocates, Green Mountain self-advocates. They're young adults with disabilities. And this is what they say sexual health is. They say that it's, I feel good about myself and my body. I have good self-esteem. I have relationships that are healthy, positive, and make me happy. I have access to sexual health information so I can make healthy decisions about my body. So I have information to avoid unintended pregnancy, STI, or other challenges. So that's how they define sexual health. And that's how I define sexual health in my work. And throughout the course of this rest of this presentation, that's my point of reference for sexual health. Okay, next slide. So what is sex ed? What do we teach? Where do we start? We have a tendency to be very reactive in our approach to sex education and addressing sexualized behaviors. Typically, we don't intervene until something happens, right? Marsha groped her direct support professional. Jason disrobed in the cereal aisle of the grocery store. But we really need to be proactive in our efforts, and this applies to typical children as well. This is not specific to people with IDD. We need to start these lessons and these conversations when adults are still children and when the teenagers are still children. Sexual behaviors are social behaviors, and we need to treat them as such. I'm going to repeat that phrase probably, I don't know how many more times. You're going to be sick of it by the time we're done with this workshop, but sexual behaviors are social behaviors. Moreover, this is not a topic that starts after one conversation, one book, one activity. When that behavior is managed, this is something that is ongoing. We just saw how we are developing sexually throughout the course of our lifespan. So why do we make sex ed situational? You know, think back to when you were in school. We were taught sex ed at very specific times, right? 5th grade, 6th grade, 8th grade. It maybe was a 2-week section of our health class, or maybe a semester health class. And then it's never revisited again, right? Outside of family life or health class, unless you yourself want to do it. And it just doesn't make sense. So next slide, please. Here we have some topics of interest depending on age. So when we have preschool and elementary school, and again, if you have an adult child who doesn't know how to label the parts of their body, that's okay. You can start now. But like I said, we always want to be proactive. So as early as we can teach these skills, we want to be teaching these skills. I asterisked the body parts and functions because I just wanted to highlight that it's really important we teach the medically accurate names of our body parts. Does anyone on this call refer to, where's my camera, this part of their body as a bendy? Anyone? No one calls this a bendy. And if you went to your doctor tomorrow and said, I broke my bendy, your doctor would have no idea what you were talking about. And so we need to give our sex parts the same respect we give the rest of our body, and actually teach young people the medically accurate names for their body. And it's so they can report abuse, right? You can't tell someone something is happening to you if you don't know how to label the parts of your body. You'll notice that decision-making, saying no, and consent are in green. And I put them in green because those are concepts that can and should be taught outside of the context of sexuality. So you're not going to be able to make decisions surrounding sex if you can't decide what you want to eat for lunch. You can't say no to a sexual advancement if you can't say no to broccoli. This is where I got my quote confused. So David Hingsberger said, this is my favorite quote of his: if you can't say no to peas, you can't say no to penis, right? So we need to be teaching decision-making, not just, is this someone I like? You know, is this stranger allowed to touch me? No, we want to teach decision-making in all parts of our life so that when that young person is in a situation that they have to make a decision surrounding sex, they're able to say no, they're able to protest or even if they do want it, they're able to say so. We live in a compliance culture, and we don't teach kids how to appropriately protest things we don't want. Think about all the things you protest throughout your day. I don't want to eat that. I don't want to go there. I don't want to sit on that call. I'm not going to turn my camera on, right? We protest all the time. Why don't we teach our young people the same skill? I know that it can be kind of a daunting thought to teach your child to say no. And I personally have run no programs where we're teaching a young person to say no, and then they begin refusing everything. And it's like, oh my gosh, this is a nightmare. But you can work through that. And I would much rather work through that knowing that when that young man or young woman is 25 years old and their Metro Access driver tries to touch them, that they will say, no, stop, right? That's really powerful. The other point or other comment I want to make is that we, the royal we, parents, providers, everyone, we need to be really mindful of the linguistic difference between a question and a demand. And we sometimes phrase demands in the form of a question, thinking that like that'll get the buy-in of the young person. So, hey, Marsha, do you want to wash your dishes? Wash the dishes? No. Well, it's your turn to wash the dishes tonight. Go wash the dishes. What does that teach that young person? It teaches them that no doesn't mean anything, right? So we just have to be mindful that when we are phrasing things as questions, we're actually implying that there's a choice there. And so when that person says, no, I don't want to do something, we have to honor that. Otherwise, we're teaching them that no doesn't mean no. So social skills, you'll see, are in purple because who's going to guess? Sexual behaviors are social behaviors, and we need to address them as such. And we need to be incorporating that social dimension into our sexuality education as much as possible because they are very much connected, right? Flirting versus harassing. That is a social skill that's also related to sexuality. And there is a very fine line between flirting and harassing. And we want to make sure that we are teaching concepts like that to our young people. Bathroom etiquette. Next slide, please. Bathroom etiquette is a very unique thing. And I'm sure that there's probably some things on here that maybe are not true. This is obviously from a men's magazine. But the point is that there are some rules for the men's bathroom, right? You're not supposed to stand directly next to someone at a urinal unless that's the only option. You're supposed to leave at minimum one stall or as many as possible. But did any of them, if there's any men in this call, did anyone sit down and explicitly tell you that? Probably not. You learned because you went to the bathroom with your dad, your brother, your uncle, your friends, and you saw what happened when someone made that mistake and stood directly next to someone at the urinal or tried to talk to someone at the urinal, right? They got a lot of grief. They got made fun of. So you learn through the natural environment. But our young people with disabilities don't necessarily learn through the natural environment. Moreover, a lot of these rules, these hidden rules about going to the bathroom, about hanging out with friends, we learn that through the context of socializing, right? We go to sleepovers, we go to a birthday party, we hang out with our friends at the mall. Our young people with IDD aren't often invited to sleepovers. They aren't. Yes, I will share slides so you can all have this information. Don't feel too stressed about writing notes and everything down. Sorry, I lost my train of thought. They don't get invited to sleepovers. They're not getting asked to go to the mall. And so they're missing all those opportunities to learn all of these weird hidden rules that we know but don't know. So how can we teach these hidden rules? Well, on the next slide, aha, we have a book called The Hidden Curriculum. It's an excellent book. I personally love this book. I've used it a lot in my practice. Sexual behaviors are social behaviors. I keep saying it because it's true. And this is a really great book to teach some of those. This book goes over nonverbal communication. You can see I put a page of the body language. It goes over slang and sarcasm. And it also has an extensive list of hidden rules. And I gave you some examples on the screen. So two people can have the same thing, right? Two people can have the same shirt because a lot of people shop at Macy's, and that's okay. We don't need to have a meltdown about it. Don't point out funny bumps on people's faces or ask them if they have pimples. Just not a good way to make friends. If you like a boy or girl, you often pretend that you don't like them at all. And this is a very bizarre one that I struggle to even understand. But dating is really difficult, even for people without disabilities. And now with online dating, it's become even more complex with catfishing and just all that other stuff. So if your child uses technology independently, you'll want to make sure that internet safety is part of that comprehensive sex ed that we talk about. Go to the next slide, please, because this is the internet. This is a real message I received many years ago, 2016. Hey, Marcia, I have to be honest, as creepy as it sounds, not a good way to start a message. I had to find you on Facebook after seeing you on Tinder. You have the prettiest hair I've ever seen on a girl and a beautiful smile, and I can totally see long-term potential. There's a lot that could go wrong here. I don't know this person. I never responded to this person. He could have been a very nice gentleman, but I don't know. And unfortunately, we don't have enough time to really talk about internet safety, but a lot of the resources I'm going to share with you do include internet safety. And that's definitely something you're going to want to cover if you have young people who are using technology like iPhones, tablets, laptops by themselves. If you have a young person who does express interest in dating, there are dating sites that are specific for people with disabilities. And I would encourage you to use those websites rather than a Tinder, because we just don't know who's out there. And if I was a young girl with an intellectual disability and I didn't really get any attention from anyone, and then I receive a message like this could be a really dangerous situation. Next slide. So again, this is a resource that I will share with you all, but it's Organization for Autism Research created a sex ed guide for self-advocates. It's online, it's free, and it was developed for young people themselves to learn about their sexuality and to get access to sexuality education. So it's great because you don't have to actually do any teaching. They can access this themselves. This is an example of a picture from their private public discrimination instruction. I really like this website. I know that it's an organization that's autism specific, but this resource is not specific to autism. So I share it with everyone. If you have a child that is not able to access this information on their own because they don't read or they can't use the computer by themselves, I still encourage parents to go to this website. It's really well done. It covers a ton of topics. It's really it's easy to read. It's very clearly written. And it's a great place for parents to learn about, what do I teach? Where do I start? You can easily modify this information. So, you can print out the pictures and have your child point to things if they're not able to use the computer. So in talking about private and public, because there were a lot of people in the pre-workshop survey who wanted to learn a little bit more information about that. Some suggestions about private and public. From an early age, it's really good to have clear, consistent family rules about privacy, restrict nudity in certain parts of the house, right? You can be naked in your bedroom, you could be naked in the bathroom, but you can't be naked in the living room. You can have no pants on in your bedroom, but you have to wear pants in the kitchen. Dress and undress in the bathroom and bedroom, closing doors and window shades when you're doing private activities. And certainly if you have a young person who has interest in solo sex, you want to be teaching to close the door, close the blinds, private. Teaching the use of a robe. I love this one. And I've taught young adults to wear a robe at home because when they come home, they don't want to wear clothes, right? And I wear clothes at home, but the first thing I do when I come home is I change out of my clothes and I put my comfy home clothes on, right? So if a young person doesn't want to wear their clothes, that's okay. We can find alternatives. Wearing a robe is a great alternative to wearing clothes. And modeling knocking. It may seem really silly and get really annoying to constantly be knocking on doors, even when you know that no one's in the bathroom, but I'm going to knock on the door anyway. But modeling is a really powerful tool. We are constantly modeling all the time our behaviors to our young people. And so if we want to teach them to knock on doors, then we should also be knocking on doors. Next slide. I'm not going to spend too much time on this one, but I wanted to show this because this is a resource that I'm sharing with you all. And it comes from the Healthy Bodies Toolkit. And this was developed by Vanderbilt University. This is also free online. It's English and Spanish. They have for boys and girls, and it's an outstanding resource. You can print all of this stuff out at home, and they give you instructions. So it's very clear what you need to do as the parent to set up this schedule or set up this activity. It comes with really awesome pictures. Carrie, if you want to go to the next slide. This is also from that. It has a pain scale. So for our ladies, when they're menstruating, you want to gauge how much pain your daughter is in. This is a really good tool. This is also really good just in general for teaching pain, not just menstrual related, but my head hurts, my stomach hurts. It's really great, especially if they're going to doctors often. It's good to get them familiar with pain scales. So again, not going to spend too much time on this, but I did want to share the Healthy Bodies Toolkit. We will see it again later, but it's a really excellent resource. Next slide. So, okay, what do you all do? Some tips. First is we need to be proactive, right? We already talked about that. We need to be teaching children to label the parts of their body when they're young, and we need to be teaching private and public before the need for privacy arises. And we suspect that this need for privacy comes up at around like 4 or 5 years old. And I do wonder if like it's a true innate need for privacy, or if we teach children, you know, that you need privacy, we kind of socialize them for that. But regardless, at around 3 to 5 years old, kids start developing this need for privacy. And so we want to be teaching public and private before that need arises, before their need for privacy arises, which will be, you know, puberty, when they want to have private time. And more often than not, people with IDD receive sex education after something inappropriate happened, right? I grew up my DSP, I had solo sex in school, I disrobed at the grocery store, and then we start to teach public and private. And at that point, it's a little bit, right? It's not too late. It's never too late, but it's like we're working extra fast now rather than working slowly and methodically to teach this information. We already talked about modeling. It's really important to model appropriate behaviors and interactions. It may seem really silly to ask your child if it's okay to give them a hug or if you have permission to give them a kiss, but that's how we teach consent. When we just grab our child's hand and say, let's go, we're teaching them that it's okay to touch people without their consent. And I'm certainly guilty of that. I think back to when I was a special ed teacher and the number of times that I was in the community and I would say, come on, Marcia, let's go. Taking her hand, moving through the grocery store because I didn't want her to get left behind. But I didn't teach her that you have to ask permission. You know, I shouldn't be surprised then when that student goes and touches the cashier at the grocery store without asking for permission, because I just modeled that that's okay. So we want to make sure that we are modeling the appropriate behaviors or modeling what we want them to do. Give access to privacy. I put this in bold because this is one that I really, really hammer away at. We can't talk about private places and private things if we aren't going to give people access to privacy. We can't tell someone you can only do this in your bedroom when you're alone with the door closed and never give them an opportunity to be in their bedroom alone with the door closed. And to be honest, most people with IDD don't understand privacy the way we do. Privacy is a very abstract concept for them because they're very rarely left completely alone, even when they're using the toilet, even when they're using the shower. I'm guilty of being that teacher with my foot in the door, thinking that, oh, I'm giving my student privacy, but I can also hear if something's going on, right? I thought I was doing a good thing. And for some students that was appropriate, and for others that was not appropriate. I shouldn't have done that. Sex education, and this is again a quote from David Hingsberger, sex education may give people the language with which to report abuse, but privacy awareness gives the concept with which to understand it. So we can teach people to label their body parts so they can report abuse, but if they don't really understand privacy awareness, then they're going to struggle to understand the broader concepts of consent. Try to be sex positive. I know that this is a really scary time and this is a really scary topic, but we don't want our young people to feel ashamed or embarrassed. And also give yourselves grace and space when you don't know the answers. We put a lot of pressure on ourselves to know all the responses right away, and that's not realistic. And so it's okay for you to say, that makes me really uncomfortable. Let's talk about that later. Or we're in McDonald's. We can't talk about that right now. We'll talk tomorrow. But just as much as possible, try to be neutral when we're addressing questions or behaviors. Giving age-appropriate information, remember, it is not what we teach, it's how we teach. And we should not be showing adults cartoon images of naked bodies if we're teaching body parts. But on the other hand, if we have a 5-year-old and we're teaching body parts, it is okay to show those cartoon pictures because that's age appropriate. So again, we want to be teaching, it's how we teach, not what we teach. What we teach should be relevant to that person's age. We have a tendency to, Marcia is 20 years old, but she's really like a 3-year-old. No, Marcia's a 20-year-old, right? She may have the same reading level as someone who's in kindergarten, but Marcia's still 20. And we need to be addressing her development as though she is 20 years old. Media. So we had already talked about how like the internet can be a really cool place, can also be a really scary place. Same with TV shows. There's actually one of the ARCs in the Midwest that runs a adult like peer group, and they watch soap operas. So they'll watch a soap opera together, and then they'll talk about the healthy aspects of a relationship, the unhealthy aspects of a relationship. And part of the reason they use the soap operas is because they're so exaggerated in their acting, the great quality acting of soap operas. And so it's very easy to pick out, you know, what's healthy, what's not healthy. How could they have said this better? How could they have done this better? And so I share this just because, you know, I think we sometimes tend to forget about things like soap operas, but they could actually be a really powerful teaching tool. Repetition is key. We already talked about this is not a one-time check the box and done. We have to repeat over and over and over, especially because most of our learners require repetition. And again, incorporating that social dimension of sexuality whenever possible, because sexual behaviors are social behaviors. Are you sick of me saying it yet? It's okay. I'm going to keep saying it a few more times. Okay, next slide. So I don't know if you're all familiar with Terry. I love Terry, and she's also the parent of a young lady with Down syndrome. She wrote a really excellent book called Teaching People with Down Syndrome About Their Bodies and Sexuality. I have it on the resource list. It's a really great book, and it's all about Down syndrome. So hopefully if you haven't heard of it, it's a really good resource to have. So she encourages parents, she reminds parents of the 4 Ps: permission to discuss and learn about sexuality, privacy. In most of our responses, we'll be teaching privacy or including that. Pleasure, don't forget to talk about pleasure, right? We often forget that like part of our sexuality is that we do things that make us feel good. And so we don't want to forget that part when we are having these conversations or addressing these topics. And then protection, we want to make sure that we discuss ways to protect oneself in certain situations. So hopefully those tips and those pointers from Terry lead us to how do we answer questions? So there's a lot of ways we can respond to questions, but here is one strategy, a little task analysis. So number 1 is don't panic, right? Remember the 3 C's: stay cool, calm, and collected. Number 2 is affirm that person's question. That was a good question. That was an interesting question. Thank you for asking. You might not be thrilled that they asked you that question, but 1, you want to reassure them that that was a good question and thanks for asking, because it makes you positive and askable. And remember, we want you to be the provider of information, not the internet. It also gives you extra time to think. You're buying yourself time to figure out what it is you want to say. Number 3, be curious. So say, what do you think a penis is? Where do you think babies come from? You know, we all know that classic joke when like Johnny comes home and says, "Mom, where did I come from?" And then she goes to this whole like birds and the bees and a man and a woman. And then when she's done, he says, "Oh, well, Marsha's from Connecticut. I just wanted to know where I'm from," right? He wanted to know like geographically where he's from. So it's a joke, but there is certainly truth to that. When I was director of an adult program, we had a young lady who talked about third base all the time. I want to go to third base. I want to go to third base. I want to go to third base. She one day asked me, "Have you been to third base?" And I said, "What do you think third base is?" And she blushed and made a kissy face and pointed to her cheek. And I said, "Oh, it's a kiss on the cheek." And she said, "Mm-hmm." And I didn't correct her for what we would consider third base, because it wasn't necessarily relevant to her. But I did say, "Oh yeah, kisses on the cheek are really nice when it's someone you care about and when you gave them permission to give you a kiss." She doesn't need to know, again, what we commonly refer to as third base, but it was good that I asked her that question. Otherwise, I could have gone down a very bizarre wormhole. Not third base, yeah. Wouldn't that be great? Let's reconfigure the bases and make them all something different. Okay, so while your young person is telling you what they think something is, number 4 is keep calm. You're doing great. Just tell yourself, "I'm doing great. I'm doing great." It's okay to acknowledge any discomfort, and it's actually probably good to share if you're feeling uncomfortable, so that's not misinterpreted by your child. Step 5, it's time to actually answer the question now. Again, you can say, "I don't know. I need to think about this. Let's finish tomorrow." Those are perfectly acceptable responses. Whatever you decide your response to be, try to be positive and non-judgmental. Remember, we don't want our person to feel shame, and we want them to continue coming to you when they have questions or concerns. We want to be giving facts. share your personal values and beliefs, and offer a range of opinions. And what does that mean? That means that if they say, do boyfriends and girlfriends have to hold hands? Well, some people hold hands with their partners and some people don't. Both are okay. That's offering a range of opinions. Considering your child's age and individual personality, right? Some kids don't want to sit and have a very long conversation. They want to do something on their tablet. A response to a 6-year-old is going to be very different to a response to a 16-year-old. So, consider the age and the unique personality of your child. And then we want to encourage feedback. Does that make sense? Do you understand? So that's one way to answer questions. We have another framework that we can use on the next slide. And this one was made famous by a woman named Winifred Kempton. She was a sexual health and disability rights advocate. And so she says that when we're answering questions, we can think about these 3 categories. We can think about the physical aspects, so you can describe what it is. We can talk about the social aspects, and we can talk about the emotional aspects. You don't have to include all of them. You don't have to include any of them, but you can if you want to. So what is a condom? Well, a condom is a rubber sock that covers a penis. That could be your answer. You could also include that a condom is private and it protects you and your partner. People feel good when they use condoms because they are being responsible and taking care of themselves and their partners. Now, your child may not really understand the feeling good about themselves and their partner's part, but they might understand that it's a rubber sock that covers your penis. So like I said, you don't have to use all of these. This is just another framework that we can use. So now we're all going to take a turn. Let's go to the next slide. We're going to do a quick round of Jeopardy. One question. And the reason this is Jeopardy is because your answer is going to be in the form of a question. So I'm going to give you the physical, social, emotional aspects, and you can unmute yourself and shout it out or put it in the chat. So let's see. Physical, when a person touches their private parts. Social, it's something you do in private. Some people do it and some people don't. Emotional, it should make you feel good.
Solo sex.
Yes, I like the use of sex positive phrasing. Carrie, can we see our answer? Oh, wait, hold on though. You didn't answer it correctly. Can you try that? Can you try your answer again?
Solo sex. Oh, what is solo sex? Yep.
Yeah, what is solo sex? Awesome, that is correct. So like I said, this is just another framework that you can use when you're responding to questions. But the really important piece, next slide, please, is that you don't have to tell your young person every single thing you know about that specific topic. You only need to share what is relevant right now. Remember, you want to give the file, not the file cabinet, right? What is a condom? It's a rubber sock that covers the penis. Stop. See what they say. That might be perfect. Oh, okay. And carry on. They might have a follow-up question. Answer that question. Stop, right? We're giving the file, not the cabinet. If you launch into, well, a condom is a rubber sock and it covers the penis and you hold the tip and you roll it down and you do when you have sex, right? You might be opening up a whole wormhole that you might not be prepared for, your child might not be prepared for. So just answer the question with only the relevant information and stop, see what the response is, and then go from there. Okay, so the next slide, we have our resources. So I'd already shared the Organization for Autism resource, the Sex Ed Guide. It's online, it's free, it's really great. Definitely recommend. And so I should mention, these are not, I'm not sharing these in any particular order. They're just being shared. The Healthy Bodies Toolkit from Vanderbilt University is also a really excellent tool. Lots of stuff for you all to print. It's English and Spanish, boys and girls, and it's free. The Tom and Ellie books. I really like these books. You can buy them on Amazon. My one qualm with them is that they don't have more diverse characters. It's only Ellie and Tom, but they're really good books. They're really well written. Again, this says for individuals with autism, but it's for everyone. It's a really good book. Good graphic pictures, but good pictures. And there's 3 different books. There's Using Public Bathrooms, Puberty, so the Things Tom Likes, that's about, or sorry, Things Tom Likes is about solo sex masturbation. Ellie Needs to Go is about using the bathroom. And then the one on puberty is What's Happening to Tom, What's Happening to Ellie. But they're really great books. And the next slide, we have some more resources. So you'll see Teaching Children with Down Syndrome About Their Bodies. Boundaries and Sexuality by Terry Cohen-Halvin. It's on that resource list that was shared with you all, but this is a really awesome book. So much good information, examples of activities that you can do, worksheets. It's pretty dense. It's like you're getting a college textbook. It's rather large, but it's really, really good. I definitely encourage you all to get yourselves a copy if you're able to. Amaze.com on the bottom right of the screen is also a free website. It was not developed specifically for people with IDD, but it's a really great sex ed website, and it was developed for young people. So they have really cool like little videos and cartoons and that sort of stuff, covering a whole range of topics. It's a really great organization. So definitely encourage you all to check that out. David Hingsberger, this is also on your resource list, but he has some really phenomenal resources. So Fingertips at the top, and there's another one that's called Handmade Love. And those are actual videos, how to masturbate videos. Solo sex masturbation is a very touchy topic that's hard for parents, professionals to really talk about, but a lot of our young people need instruction on how to do this. These are about 20-minute videos. They do come with a book that has some kind of pre-teaching what to do before you show the video. But the idea is that your young person can watch this video by themselves and kind of learn the how-to. I've watched both of them. I actually made my husband watch them too. We watched it while eating dinner one night. So they're about 20 minutes in length. They're really well done. They kind of go through how I'm feeling, when I'm feeling horny, what does that mean? The person goes into their bedroom and says, I'm going to close my door. I'm going to close my blind, like really going through the whole checklist, making sure everything's private. You do see the person engaging in solo sex. And then at the end, they'll say, I feel really good. I'm kind of sweaty. I'm going to go take a shower now so I can be clean. I'm going to put new clothes on. It's really well done. They come from Canada, so it takes a little bit of time to arrive, but it's really the only resource I've been able to find available on this particular topic. He also has a resource called The Ethics of Touch, and that's all about basically like safe touch and not safe touch. So if we have individuals who require assistance in the bathroom with toileting, changing diapers, this is a really good resource to use. What Makes a Baby is a really great book. He has another book, this author, Corey Silverberg, called Sex is a Funny Word. Those have a lot of text. There's really cool images, a lot of text. So not necessarily something that all young people can read on their own. And then the last one I wanted to share, if you were interested in kind of more research, Sexuality and Disability is a peer-reviewed journal that I subscribe to. They include a lot of literature on sexuality related to people with IDD, but there's also just broad sexuality information and disability. So it's a really cool research it's a really cool journal if anyone's interested in the more like academic research, sexuality information, that could be a really good resource as well. So that's all I have. I went through that really fast. I'm glad that I left time for questions and answers. So Carrie, if you want to go to the last slide that has my contact information. I know there was a lot of things I didn't necessarily touch on that you all had shared in your surveys. So here's my email address, my personal email address. I invite you to reach out to me if you have specific questions, or if there was something I maybe went through really quickly that you want to learn more about, please reach out to me. I am doing a workshop next week on the same topic. I'm partnering with an organization called DC Autism Parents. We're actually going to be doing a whole entire series of workshops. So next week will be the same one. So if you know anyone who wasn't able to attend tonight, they can attend next week. It's DC Autism Parents, but it's open to everyone. It's not just for autism. And we'll be doing more workshops on consent, topics specific to girls, topics specific to boys, internet safety. It's going to be really great. So keep your eyes peeled for that. And with that, I'm done. Does anyone have any questions? Oh, you're so welcome. I typically do this as a 2.5-hour in-person workshop. So it's a lot to condense down into an hour, but hopefully you all found some useful information. And like I said, you're more than welcome to reach out to me at any time. I'm happy to help you however I can.
Thank you so much. This has been eye-opening and very useful. My child with Down syndrome is only 6. I do have older kids though, so it's great. Please, everyone, questions. floor is open.
That was great. I think now we have homework. We want to check all these fantastic resources you're sharing with us. So
yeah,
thank you.
I mean, definitely go through. I know that the resource list has like a lot on it, and I try to kind of put things that are most relevant or like, you know, my personal favorite resources. But I definitely encourage you all to kind of go through those, and you certainly want to see, before you give anything to your child, you yourself want to see what it is. So yeah, go through and explore, and I'm happy to pass along more resources. So if there's something that there's a topic that you want to know more on that's not on that resource list, you can also reach out to me, and I will do my best to get that to you. Can I post again the slide with the books? And then, how can we support our children to develop relationships after COVID?
Thank you for the presentation. It was really great.
Oh, you're so welcome. I'm sorry.
I have one question. Can you? I just kind of missed the 2 CDs you said about the masturbation. Where can we get those things?
The DVDs.
Yes.
So they're, yeah. So I think the website is, I think it's like Diverse City Press. So on the, is everyone seeing that resource page in the chat? There's a resource page in the chat, and if you click on that, it'll open up a PDF, and the PDF has those videos on it. I can, give me a second, I can try to put it into the chat very quickly.
Oh, I just put it into the chat.
Okay,
the resources, great. Is that what you're looking for, Marcia?
Yeah, I was gonna also put I was just gonna put the link for where the videos are quickly. City Press. Okay, here, I'm gonna put the link for the website in the chat right now. Okay. And that's where you can get the videos on masturbation, as well as the ethics of touch. And he has a lot of other resources and articles. And one other thing I'm going to send, I'm sorry I didn't have it ready for tonight, is that Ring of Safety, the David Hingsberger framework, Ring of Safety. I'm going to send that out. So I'll send that to Carrie, and she can forward it to you all as well. It's a it's really excellent. I think it's like 3 pages, so it's not super long, but it really goes into, you know, what do we need to provide our young people so that they can protect themselves and keep themselves safe. I think Almaz has her hand raised.
Thank you. It's really a bunch of information. Thank you very much. But, you know, I have very quick question. So my son is with special needs. Right now, he's like 11 years, almost he turned, like April is coming 12. It looks like, you know, everything is changed. Like he's like, the voices looks like big voice, you know, like that when he's speaking. And, you know, he's kind of the private area is, you know, bunch of hair, you know, everything looks like very quick change. So if you think it's those things is like his age, you know, he's starting things is changing like when he turned 11. So those is like it's normal, or, you know, I don't know. He's my first son. You know, I don't have any experience. It's something I'm really, you know, concerned now. It's so early, you know, like things is new, things is coming like so early. You know, you think like that is normal, or, you know, I have to go somewhere, or, you know, what you recommend about that? Thank you.
Yeah, so just I want to make sure I understood your question correctly. He's growing hair, and we want to make sure that that's normal. He's 11 years old and starting to develop body hair.
Like, you know, the not normal hair, like, you know, kind of the private area hair, you know, I don't know what to say about English. And like his voice looks like, you know, he have like big voice, you know, when he talking, his voice looks change. And like he have kind of white discharge to his 11. So I don't know, like before, you know, he's my first son, that's why like maybe it's normal, or it's very fast, or
Yeah,
that is my
so
question.
yeah, that's a good question. And for boys, puberty starts at around 9 years old. So it would be very normal for an 11-year-old to start developing body hair. Sometimes boys at night, when they start to get 9, 10, 11, will wake up in the morning and they'll have wet sheets because they'll have ejaculated at nighttime. It's all normal. Boys, like I said, boys puberty starts at around 9 and it doesn't end until 18. So from 9 to 18, they're in puberty. So I wouldn't be too concerned right now.
Okay, thank you.
You're welcome. I'm trying to keep up with the chat.
Marsha, here, I can read you some of the questions because I've been kind of going through them. Julie asked, my child is a teen, but still needs help with some hygiene issues. I am uncertain how to help him, but also treat him in an age appropriate way. I think that's a really common question for many of our families. I'm really glad Julie asked that question for boys and girls.
Yeah, I mean, so, I think when we're talking about age appropriate, obviously if an individual needs support in the bathroom, so like I don't know how to put deodorant on, and I don't know how to wipe myself from the toilet, and I need help brushing my teeth. And so obviously depending on a person's ability, they might be able to learn those skills to independence, or they might always need support. When we're talking about age appropriate, we just want to make sure that, so in this particular situation, when we are interacting with that young person, so a teen, so let's say they were, 15 years old, and helping them brush their teeth is not going to look the same as when you're helping a 6-year-old brush their teeth. So for a 6-year-old, you might be singing like silly songs and kind of being really silly and making it very like play-like. And for a 16-year-old, you might not be singing. You might have a song that you sing, right? Maybe that's, we're going to sing a song for 2 minutes. That's how we know that's how long we're brushing our teeth. But you don't want it to be like the Barney song or another little kid's song. We want to make sure that the language we're using is what, again, this is tricky because it depends also on the person, what they can understand receptively. But we want to make sure that we're not talking to this 15-year-old as though they're a 5-year-old when we're wiping them from the toilet. I don't know if that answers the question completely. But that's kind of what we mean when we're talking about age appropriate. It's just like how we are supporting them. So, singing a song is a great strategy, but what song are we singing? The song we sing with 15-year-olds would be different than 5-year-olds. I think you're so muted, Brooke.
Marsha, I have not got the link for those videos yet.
Oh, you didn't get the link? I'm sorry.
Yes, please.
Let me try it again.
All right, so sorry, I was on mute. I didn't realize it. Okay, so another question is, how can we support our children to develop relationships after COVID?
So you mean like when we start doing social things again?
Right.
Yeah, that's a good question. So, I mean, there's a lot of, so again, if your child is, and I guess when you mean relationships, are you talking about just friendships or romantic or both? Both. So, obviously there's a lot of really awesome organizations that have social activities for young people with disabilities. I know like PCR is one. I don't know if you're all familiar with PCR, but they do a lot of different social activities and events. So I would definitely encourage to look for those types of organizations, because that'll be a really great way to provide social opportunities for your young person. In terms of dating, so that resource list I shared has specific resources for dating, because dating is pretty complicated, and we don't want our young people to be in a bad situation with someone. So, dating, and certainly if you want to talk about dating, we can talk offline a little bit in more detail about how you teach that and kind of how you go about supporting dating. But for the socializing, I would definitely look for organizations and programs that offer social opportunities for people with disabilities. don't mean to say keep saying PCR, but that's just what's in my mind right now. But they do like dances and bowling and really, really awesome things. And there's a lot of other organizations that do something similar. There's ArtStream. So I would definitely look for those types of organizations, because that will be a really great way. And I know that I put a meetup. I don't know if you guys are familiar with Meetup. It's like a website, and they have different, like, if you're interested in running, you can go to a running meetup. If you're interested in like knitting, you can go to a knitting meetup. But they also have meetups for people with disabilities. I don't remember if there's one specific for young people with Down syndrome, like a local one, but I will look that up and send that out, because that could also be a really great resource as well.
And Marcia, so you know, we don't call them meetups, we have some hangouts. And for
cool.
The Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery puts on for middle school, high schoolers and adults. So we do have programs for people with Down syndrome. There's a couple more questions in the chat. Do you have time? And I see that there's still a couple hands raised. I find it hard to know what my son needs to know. He will not necessarily ask questions because he does not know what he needs to know or what he doesn't know. And he's 15.
Yeah, so I mean, this kind of goes back to our like being proactive, because a lot of times, sorry, I'm trying to paste this in the chat. Okay. So this kind of goes back to the whole being proactive. A lot of times young people are not going to initiate conversation. They're not going to necessarily tell you what they do know or they don't know. So a lot of this will just be kind of you presenting information. Does this make sense? Do you want to know more? Do you want to getting feedback is really probably the best strategy. This is not, I think what makes this really difficult, unfortunately, is that we don't have a curriculum the way that we have curriculums for education, right? When we know in kindergarten, these are the things that we need to teach, and these are the skills the child's supposed to have. By the time a child's done with 5th grade, these are the things they should have learned, and these are the skills they should have had. And we don't have that for sex ed. We don't have a procedure or protocol for how to do things. And so a lot of the work is kind of like trial and error, right? Like, we tried this book, they threw it across the room. We're not going to try that book again. We're going to try using a tablet instead, right? So a lot of it's just going to be you having to be proactive, kind of providing information, providing resources, kind of setting up that opportunity for learning, and then seeing what the response is, seeing what the reaction is. If they don't like it, trying something new. If they do like it, asking for feedback. Does that make sense? Do you understand? Yeah, it's unfortunate that we don't have a more structured way to go about teaching this, unfortunately.
Marcia, for those single moms out there, how do you suggest modeling for boys, like using proper use of the bathrooms when there's no other males at home? Like, how would you for a mom to help a son learn that?
Yeah, that's a really good question. And it's tricky. So, I mean, I would definitely, so a lot of the resources I shared talk about bathroom etiquette. So that could be a really good place to start, is providing some of that information. You could also do role playing at home. So like you can, and it might be silly, like, mom's going to pretend to be a guy, like we're going to pretend to be in the men's bathroom, but that could also be a really good way to practice those skills, and you're practicing it at home. So, it's a very safe environment. It's a very controlled environment. Certainly if you have like a trusted neighbor or like a family friend who's a male, you can have them come in and do like practice and role play in the home as well. So that's where I would start. But that's a really good question. It's really hard. And that's certainly something that when I was a teacher, something that I ran into a lot as a female, not being able to like go into bathrooms with my students or teach them how to like use the bathroom, because I can't go in there with them if it's a multi-stall bathroom. Brooke, you're still muted.
Sorry. Is it Adriana or Adriana? I see that your hand is up. Adriana Toro?
Yes.
Yeah.
Yes, thank you. I had a question. Maybe if you know any therapists or a center that can provide therapeutic support for kids or parents to like take all these changes and body changes and life changes on our kids. My daughter is Down syndrome, and I think a therapy to she's 13 to handle all the changes on her life will be great.
Yeah, so unfortunately, there isn't anyone that I know of. I was so I've changed jobs, but I was previously working at a hospital in DC, and I opened an ABA clinic as part of their outpatient services. And while I was there, I was getting most of my referrals were young people who had sexualized behaviors, disrobing in public, pulling their penis out in school, touching people inappropriately. And so we were through ABA targeting some of those behaviors and teaching replacement skills. I'm not with that organization anymore. I'm actually working with a new organization in Virginia. So I don't have a recommendation for like a specific therapist. I'd be happy to connect with you offline. Hopefully you were able to get my email address, and we can maybe try to talk and problem solve and see if we can come up with a plan together for how to support your daughter.
Thank you so much.
You're welcome.
Yes. Anyway, sorry, I was on mute again. So it's just about 5 after 8, or 8, I guess 8:35 right now. So Carrie, did you want to just do a little wrap up? And you're on mute, by the way.
Thank you.
Classic.
Computers, it's a little. Thank you so much, Marcia. This has been a great and really, really informative hour. I'm thrilled that everybody has been able to join us and learn from your expertise and all these wonderful resources you've shared. I'm sure we will all be using. So thank you, and we appreciate your time and your knowledge. Thank you so much.
Thank you. And yeah,
Thank you. Very nice.
thank you. Yeah, please reach out to me. I'm happy to help however I can. So thank you all for being here. I appreciate you.
And please, please, please click on the evaluation link.
Yeah, do the survey. I would love to hear your thoughts.
Do the survey, and then also the resources. If you just click on it, it will open onto your computer, and you can download the resource list right onto your computer.
How do you get that list?
It's in the chat. If you I'll keep this open for now, but if you keep going up, you'll see that there's I mean, I can, you know what, how about this? I will add it right now so that it's the last thing that's on there. Okay, so do you see the file now? It's a PDF. If you click on it, it says sexual health or resources.pdf. If you click on it, that will open up as a PDF onto your computer, and then you can save it as a file, a PDF file into one of your own files. And then
it's not, doesn't seem to be in the chat right now.
it's not? I sent it to everyone.
Yeah.
That's so weird.
It's so weird. Yeah, I see it.
We can send it out. We can post it on.
I got it.
Send it out.
Yeah.
Yeah, you just download. There should be a little icon there, and you just click on it.
On the arrow.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and then you click it a second time, and it'll open up.
Yeah, it'll open up, and then I couldn't save it. I had to export it as a PDF, but
I'm clicking on it now. Mine just says click to open. It just opens straight up. But maybe you have to have Adobe. I don't know.
Yeah, it may depend what kind of.
At either rate, this is what we're gonna, if you can't get to it right now, the Down Syndrome Network of Montgomery County has a website, and meet Opal Foster on here. She is our fantastic person who will add it to our website. So we are recording this. The recording will be on our website hopefully in the next, I don't know, maybe by the end of next week. We're working out some kinks for getting that all worked out, but it is going to happen. And we will also put this this resource list on there as well so that you can download it.
Sounds good. Thank you, Brooke. Thank you, Marcia. Thank you, everyone, for
Thank
coming.
you.
All
Have a
right,
good night,
thank you
everyone.
so much, Marcia. That was fantastic.